Roll Credits, where movie lovers get the trivia they didn't know they needed. This podcast was created with help from AI tools, so double check any quotes before you drop any show-off trivia. Today, we're entering the shadowy world of Spider-Noir, a Spider-Man story drenched in mystery, pulp detective vibes, and old-school noir atmosphere.
Yeah, it really is a completely different world.
It is, and I want you to just imagine something for a second. Imagine a version of Spider-Man who, actively knocks back heavy liquor at the end of a long shift.
Yeah.
A guy who keeps a loaded firearm in his trench coat, who uses lethal force without losing an ounce of sleep over it, and, who suffers from these agonizing, blinding migraines every single time his spider sense tingles.
It's brutal.
Exactly. If you're sitting there right now suffering from superhero fatigue, thinking, oh great, another shiny teenager swinging through New York, well, this is going to completely shatter your expectations.
Oh, absolutely. It's a total reinvention.
So we have this massive stack of articles, reviews, and behind-the-scenes interviews in front of us. And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack Prime Video's highly anticipated live-action series. We're going to figure out exactly how the creators stripped away the bright spandex to build this brutal 1930s gumshoe thriller.
And we really have to look at Nicolas Cage's performance, too.
Yes, his incredibly eccentric lead performance. Plus, we're going to help you decide whether you should watch this in its intended black and white format or in full blazing color.
Well, it's such a crazy choice to have to make. I mean, it really is a radical departure from the formula we've all been, spoon-fed for the last 2 decades.
Right.
The creators didn't just slap a fedora on the modern hero,
right,
and drop him into a vintage car. They basically ripped the entire mythos out by the roots.
And just transplanted it.
Exactly. Transplanted it right into 1933 New York, right in the bleak, crushing reality of the Great Depression. And honestly, the most crucial piece of this puzzle is our protagonist. We are not following Peter Parker.
Wait, we're not.
No, we are following Ben Reilly.
Okay, right off the bat, that is a massive shift.
Completely. I mean, this version of Ben Reilly is a down-on-his-luck private investigator. He's a World War I veteran who actually retired from being a masked vigilante known as the Spider.
Oh, so he's already retired when the show starts.
Yeah, 5 years before our story even begins.
Yeah.
And his reason for retiring is what really grounds the entire series. His fiancée, a woman named Ruby Williams, was murdered.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he couldn't save her. So he just simply walked away from the life.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because I have to push back on the fundamental premise here. I was reading through these character profiles, and this guy gets his powers not from a radioactive spider in some pristine, sterilized science lab, but from a terrifying man-spider bite.
Yep. While he's trying to liberate a German POW camp during the First World War.
Right. I mean, he is cynical, he shoots people, he drinks to forget. Is this even Spider-Man anymore? It sounds like a hard-boiled Raymond Chandler detective novel that just happens to feature a guy who can climb walls.
Well, that cognitive dissonance you're feeling, that is exactly the reaction showrunners Oren Uziel and Steve Lightfoot engineered.
Really? They wanted that confusion.
Yeah, and the reason for this incredibly dark departure stems from this really brilliant behind-the-scenes corporate reality.
Oh, I love the corporate drama. What happened?
So Marvel has these notoriously strict stipulations when it comes to licensing their intellectual property. They specifically prohibited Sony from portraying the Peter Parker version of Spider-Man as a character who drinks, smokes, or kills.
Ah, so Peter Parker is basically the ultimate corporate golden child.
Exactly.
He has to remain this eternal, pure Boy Scout so they don't damage the brand equity or the lunchbox sales.
Precisely. You cannot have your mascot blowing smoke rings and gunning down mobsters. But the showrunners knew you also can't have an authentic 1930s hard-boiled detective who, drinks a warm glass of milk and refuses to throw a fatal punch in a dark alley.
Right. The genre demands grit. It just wouldn't work.
So, to bypass Marvel's brand protections, they utilized the comic clone named Ben Reilly. By making him a distinct alternate character, the writers basically handed themselves a blank check to get as dark and messy as they wanted.
That is just a masterclass in using a corporate constraint to fuel creative freedom. You find the loophole and you just drive a Mack truck right through it.
And they really pushed that newfound freedom into the actual mechanics of his powers. Take his famous spider sense, for example.
The magical tingle.
Right. In the modern movies, it's this magical, convenient tingle that slows down time and perfectly warns Peter of danger. But for Ben Reilly, because his powers came from a horrific, almost demonic man spider bite, his spider sense is a physical burden.
Like it hurts him.
Yeah, it manifests as agonizing migraines. It's sensory overload. It literally physically hurts him to tap into his powers.
Wow. Which basically strips away all the glamorous wish fulfillment of having superpowers. It turns a gift into a chronic illness.
It does. And they even subverted the most sacred pillar of the franchise.
Wait, the great power quote?
Yes. The mantra, with great power comes great responsibility. In this universe, no wise fatherly Uncle Ben delivered that line to guide his moral compass.
Really? Then who said it?
Instead, it was spoken to Ben by his fiancée, Ruby, shortly before she was murdered.
Oh, wow. So instead of this inspiring lesson on civic duty, it's a tragic, haunting echo from a dead lover.
Exactly.
He's not putting on the mask because it's the right thing to do. He's doing it out of crushing survivor's guilt. And, because he is suppressing so much trauma and, frankly, terrifying insect-like instincts, you can't just cast a traditional, handsome leading man to play him.
No, absolutely not. You need someone who thrives in the bizarre.
Which is why Nicolas Cage is arguably the only actor on the planet who could execute this specific psychology.
Yeah, this is his first lead role in a live-action television series, which is a massive milestone in itself. But his approach to the internal life of Ben Reilly is what makes the performance so captivating.
I was actually reading about his preparation for the role, and it sounds wild. He views Ben as someone who is actively terrified of what's inside him.
Yes, because in the lore of the show, Ben's spider instincts are overwhelmingly primal. He feels this constant predatory urge that makes him feel, less than human.
So how does he fight that?
To combat it, he actively studies actors in classic movies just to, as Cage puts it, relearn how to be human again.
Wait, he studies movies to act human.
Yeah, he is literally imitating human behavior so he doesn't devolve into an actual monster.
It's like he's an alien trying to blend in at a 1940s costume party. Like he's watching people talk, mimicking their cadence, but the suit doesn't quite fit.
That's a great way to put it.
It's a performance inside of a performance, which has to be incredibly jarring to watch, but just impossible to look away from.
And Cage formulated a very specific recipe for that layered performance. He told the press his delivery is 70% Humphrey Bogart and 30% Bugs Bunny.
Wait, I'm sorry, Bugs Bunny. Only Nicolas Cage could say he's channeling a cartoon rabbit for a gritty Marvel superhero and somehow have it make total sense. But how does that actually work mechanically on screen?
Well, think about Humphrey Bogart in The Maltese Falcon. He's rigid, guarded, speaking in this clipped, cynical monotone. That's the 70%.
Okay, so that's Ben's armor against a cruel city.
Right. But then you have the 30% Bugs Bunny, which Cage specifically modeled after the legendary voice actor Mel Blanc.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Bugs Bunny is defiant. He's chaotic. He will casually chew a carrot while a hunter has a shotgun pointed directly at his face. For Ben Reilly, that flippant, sarcastic humor acts as a trauma response.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, when he's terrified or when the insect instincts start bubbling up, he uses that cartoonish sarcasm to maintain his grip on reality.
That is brilliant. He's using the cadence of old Hollywood to literally anchor his own sanity. And he was clearly locked into this frequency from day one. I read this fantastic anecdote about a pre-production lunch he had with the showrunner, Oren Uziel.
Oh, the table read story.
Yes. They hadn't even built the sets yet, but Cage showed up to the restaurant having already memorized half the script. And right there, in the middle of lunch, he spontaneously performed an entire emotional scene, but he did it entirely in the voice of Edward G. Robinson, the legendary 1930s gangster actor.
It really shows a level of total commitment. But, because Ben Reilly views the world through this cracked, hyper-stylized lens of vintage cinema, the creators made a really fascinating choice.
Yeah, the format choices.
They decided to drag you, the viewer, right into that same visual headspace. They didn't just shoot the show normally. They engineered a dual format release.
Yes. I love this. When you log into Prime Video, you are literally confronted with a choice before you hit play. You can stream the series in what they call authentic black and white, or you can choose True Hue Full Color.
It's an interactive element you almost never see in modern television.
Really never.
And it's incredibly rare because lighting a scene to look masterful in both formats simultaneously is a logistical nightmare.
I can imagine.
Let's examine the authentic black and white version first. The cinematographer Darren Tiernan specifically designed the lighting to emulate 1940s chiaroscuro.
Okay, so for you listening who might not be a film student, chiaroscuro is essentially that classic shot where a detective is standing under a flickering street lamp and exactly half of his face is bright, harsh white, while the other half completely vanishes into a pitch black shadow. Like there's almost no gray area.
Exactly. It's that stark interplay between extreme light and deep dark. And practically speaking, leaning into those crushing shadows does a lot of heavy lifting for a television production.
Oh.
Well, it brilliantly obscures budget constraints. If you have Ben swinging from a skyscraper, hiding the digital seams of the visual effects inside those deep shadows makes the CGI look far more photorealistic.
Oh, that's incredibly smart.
Right. But on a psychological level, the black and white format emotionally isolates the characters. It strips away the warmth of the world, making Cage's performance feel deeply tragic.
Huh.
It just forces your brain to focus entirely on the bleakness of the detective story.
But then you have the true hue full color version, and supposedly Nicolas Cage himself lobbied hard for this version to be released.
He did, yeah.
He argued that younger viewers, teenagers who aren't accustomed to watching vintage black and white cinema, might need an easier entry point into the story. But I have to ask you, doesn't this undermine the entire project?
How do you mean?
Well, it's like listening to a gritty underground punk album that's been overproduced in ultra-crisp spatial audio. If they worked so hard to build this oppressive noir tension through shadows, doesn't splashing vibrant color all over it just ruin the mood?
It's a highly debated topic among critics, actually, but the color version doesn't ruin the tension. It just shifts your cognitive focus.
In what way?
Instead of watching a 1940s film noir, the color version makes you feel like you're reading a highly saturated Sunday comic strip brought to life. It reveals the show's underlying comic book DNA.
Oh, I see. So it changes the genre entirely based on which button you click?
Exactly.
I was looking at some reviews, and they point out how the color format completely changes your perception of the costumes. Take Lamorne Morris, who plays the journalist Robbie Robertson.
Oh, his suits are amazing.
Right. In the color version, he is wearing these incredibly sharp, vibrant, almost aggressive orange suits. In black and white, your brain just registers it as a nice gray suit. But in color, that orange is a massive statement about his character's flashiness and ambition.
It also transforms how your brain processes the action sequences. Take the fight scenes with a villain named Megawatt, who manipulates electricity.
Right, the VFX heavy scenes.
Right. In black and white, the fight relies on harsh, strobe-like flashes of white light cutting through the dark to create suspense. It feels grounded and scary. But in color, those electric blasts are bright, crackling, vivid blues and yellows.
Wow, so it totally changes the vibe.
Yeah, suddenly it turns into a spectacular, chaotic comic book battle. So the black and white emphasizes the grim reality, while the color highlights the surreal, stunning production design.
And to make a scene look gorgeous in both high-contrast grayscale and vibrant color simultaneously, the physical production had to be meticulously engineered. You can't just slap an Instagram filter on standard footage and call it noir.
No, definitely not.
The textures of the suits, the paint on the walls, the physical camera tech, all had to serve two masters.
Which is why the choice of filming locations is so fascinating. To achieve the authentic look of 1930s New York, the production team actually filmed the entire series in Los Angeles.
Wait, that seems entirely counterintuitive. Why not just go to New York?
Because modern New York has been so heavily renovated and modernized, finding untouched 1930s architecture on a massive scale is incredibly difficult.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Los Angeles, however, has a wealth of perfectly preserved Art Deco architecture. They utilized the famous Warner Bros. Backlot for those sweeping exterior New York street scenes, but they integrated historic LA locations that haven't changed in 90 years.
Like where?
For instance, they shot inside the Prince restaurant in Koreatown, which has this immaculate, untouched vintage interior with deep red leather booths and dark wood.
Oh, I've seen that place.
It's gorgeous. They also used the Millennium Biltmore Hotel, which is actually where the Academy Awards were founded, to stand in for the villain's lair, the Hillhurst Hotel. That location brings an inherent subconscious glamour that you just can't build on a soundstage.
And it wasn't just the physical rooms, it was the actual technology they hauled into those rooms. The cinematographer, Darren Tiernan, refused to rely entirely on modern, flat LED lighting panels. He insisted on using vintage 1930s lighting technology.
Yeah, they were hauling around massive, heavy Fresnels and old-school softboxes.
Which has to be exhausting for the crew.
Oh, for sure. But it makes a massive difference in how the light hits the actors. A Fresnel light uses a specific glass lens, which was originally invented for lighthouses, actually, that creates a very focused beam of light with a soft, gradual fall-off at the edges.
So it's not as harsh as modern lights.
Right. When that light hits Nicolas Cage's fedora, It wraps around his face differently than a modern LED. That authenticity translates directly through the lens, making both the color and black and white formats pop.
But a visual masterpiece falls completely flat if it doesn't sound right. I mean, the auditory landscape of a detective story is just as critical as the lighting. You need to hear the grit.
Absolutely. And the auditory world built by composers Chris Bowers and Michael Dean Parsons is exceptional. It's this seamless blend of smoky late-night jazz club instrumentation and sweeping orchestral tension that kicks in during the action.
They even brought the music into the narrative itself, right? Like the actress Lee Jun-lee, who plays the nightclub singer and classic femme fatale Kat Hardy, actually performs the vocals on the soundtrack.
She does.
You hear her singing the classic standard Dream, A Little Dream of Me, alongside an original track called The Devils You Know. Having the actors physically generate the music makes the world feel incredibly tactile and lived in.
And you desperately need that grounded, tactile world to support the villains. A gritty detective setting requires antagonists who fit the mold of a crime syndicate.
Right.
You cannot have Ben Reilly fighting a giant CGI alien inside a smoky 1930s speakeasy.
Which brings us to a major point of contention for hardcore comic fans. Amazon and Sony have the entire massive Spider-Man catalog at their disposal. Yet the rogues gallery they chose for this series consists entirely of obscure, deep-cut mob enforcers.
It's true, they really dug deep.
We have Silvermane, who is traditionally an Italian mobster in the comics, reimagined here as a brutal Irish crime boss played by Brendan Gleeson.
Great casting, by the way.
Unbelievable casting. We have Tombstone, played by Abraham Papua, who is reinvented as a former World War I POW with unbreakable skin. And we have Jack Houston playing a tragic, decaying version of Sandman, alongside the lesser-known villain Megawatt. I have to challenge this strategy, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Why on earth would you bench heavy hitters like Venom, Dr. Octopus, or the Green Goblin to focus on D-list mobsters?
Well, it really all comes down to the mechanics of stakes and tone. If you introduce a cosmic threat like the Venom symbiote falling from space, or a mad scientist with giant mechanical tentacles ripping up the subway, you completely shatter the illusion of the hard-boiled detective genre.
Oh, because it breaks the realism.
Right. Noir isn't about saving the universe from an apocalypse. Noir is about human corruption. It's about massive institutions and wealthy men failing the little guy.
That makes a lot of sense. A guy in a suit bribing the mayor in a back room is a completely different genre of fear than an alien invasion.
Exactly. Having Brendan Gleeson Silvermane manipulating city politics, controlling the police force, and crushing the working class is far scarier and more relevant in this specific 1933 universe.
It's a systemic problem.
Yes. It forces Ben Reilly to act as a detective first and a vigilante second. He can't just punch his way out of systemic political corruption. He has to outsmart it.
It grounds the conflict beautifully. But while this world operates so well as a self-contained story, there is a massive elephant in the room regarding how this fits into the broader pop culture landscape.
Ah, the multiverse question.
Because, as most listeners probably know, this isn't the first time we've heard Nicolas Cage's voice coming out from behind a vintage black and white Spider-Man mask.
No, it's not. And that's a really vital distinction to make. Nicolas Cage famously voiced a beloved character called Spider-Noir in the wildly successful animated movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Which was amazing.
It was. But because that character was so popular, a massive portion of the audience assumed this live-action series was a direct spin-off, or maybe a prequel, to that exact animated character.
So we really need to clear up this multiverse confusion for anyone tuning in. Are we watching the same guy we saw in the animated movie?
We are not. They are fundamentally different characters.
Completely different.
Yes. In the animated Spider-Verse films, Nicolas Cage was voicing an alternate universe version of Peter Parker. As we've established today, the protagonist of this live-action series is Ben Reilly. Showrunner Oren Uziel has been explicitly clear on this. Spider-Noir takes place in a completely isolated, different universe. It is a distinct variant of the character with a different backstory and entirely different rules.
Which, honestly, is the best news possible for the viewer. It means you do not have to do any homework before you hit play.
Exactly. No required reading.
You don't need to watch 5 other movies, read a wiki page, or understand the convoluted timelines of a cinematic universe to understand this plot. You can just sit down, pick your color format, and watch a good detective show.
And that standalone nature is the show's greatest strength. It proves a point that Hollywood often forgets. Superhero stories don't have to be formulaic, end-of-the-world
I
blockbusters.
really don't.
When you strip away the suffocating baggage of a massive cinematic universe, you can create a quiet, character-driven period piece. You can experiment with format, you can play with 1930s lighting techniques, and you can let actors like Nicolas Cage just get delightfully weird.
It really shatters the mold of what a comic book adaptation is supposed to look like. Which leaves you with a pretty fascinating thought experiment to chew on long after this deep dive ends. We've just seen that Spider-Man, the ultimate brightly colored, quip-making teenager, can be seamlessly, brilliantly adapted into a brutal 1930s hard-boiled detective.
So what else is possible?
Exactly. What other iconic pop culture heroes are secretly perfect for a complete dark genre overhaul? Imagine a Victorian-era Iron Man, a wealthy industrialist building steampunk armor in a foggy, gaslit London alleyway while hunting Jack the Ripper.
I would watch that in a heartbeat.
Right. Or picture a Cold War spy version of Captain America stripped of his flashy shield, navigating a tense, paranoid, John le Carré-style espionage thriller in 1960s Berlin. Once you realize the spandex is just a suggestion, the shadows suddenly look like a very exciting place to play.
Absolutely.
And that wraps our dive into Spider-Noir. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Roll Credits and share it with your fellow superhero and noir fans, and let us know what film or series we should cover next. We'll be back soon with more trivia, more movie magic, and maybe a few more secrets hidden in the shadows.